Welcome to another episode, everyone. Representative John Kennedy gets shut down for his racism. Yes, indeed. He's talking about the gun deaths, the gun violence in Chicago with those miscreant thugs. And a Yale professor here shuts this individual down and shuts down his racism when she schools him on the gun violence and gun deaths as it relates to the American people. Let's take a look.
Why do you think that Chicago has become America's largest outdoor shooting range? Do you think it's because of Chicago citizens who have no criminal record, but who have lawfully a gun in their home for protection or perhaps for hunting? Or do you think it's because of a finite group of criminals who have rap sheets as long as King Kong's arm?
So that's the question that he just posed. And of course, you know, the implications are clear. He's asking if these criminals, these thugs, are the individuals in Chicago who are causing all of the death and mayhem, and not law-abiding citizens who may have weaponry inside of their homes for protection or for hunting. To kill animals is what hunting is. And that's just the mindset, the narcissism of these individuals, to believe that they have the right to determine who lives and who dies. This is what they believe. What gives you the right to kill an animal? You don't go around shooting and killing dogs, because you will be reprimanded. You'll be outcast, castigated, because you have determined that a dog's life has more value than a deer's life, or a chicken, or a cow, those of which you slaughter all of the time. And you go and hunt and shoot and kill animals in the most brutal of fashions. And then want to talk about these thugs and criminals in Chicago. You people, all you do is use the weapon. This is what you're known for. These people really make me sick because they're so hypocritical. That's what gets on my nerve, is the hypocrisy of it all. Imagine someone like this individual with a propensity to use a firearm against those who he believes is lesser than him, without hesitation, is sitting here talking about the thugs in Chicago and their firearms.
Mississippi, Louisiana, and Missouri actually have higher firearm death rates. Obviously, there's certain...
What about Chicago?
So I don't live in Chicago. It's not my primary area of research.
You don't have an opinion on that?
I think there's easy access to firearms combined with environmental conditions, lack of great education. There have actually been studies showing that when you green vacant lots and repair abandoned buildings in urban neighborhoods, you see decreases in gunshots, in violence, as well as in stress and depression in the neighborhoods around them.
No disrespect.
So she just said it. Of course, we can see he doesn't want to hear that. No disrespect, doctor. He's about to say, look, he doesn't want to hear it. But she just set the record straight, set the law straight, said that, yeah, there's gun violence. There is indeed gun death there in Chicago. However, there are other states that have more gun violence. She mentioned Missouri and others that have more gun violence than that. And these are not heavily black populated states that she just named, for one. And for two, she said that the gun violence, that there are reasons for this, that these individuals are not being cared for, to paraphrase. They don't have programs, etc. And when they put certain programs into place, the violence decreased, indicating that giving these children something, some sort of direction and guidance and incentive will indeed decrease the violence. It's a motivation. Also indicating that when they do not have these things, it leads to violence, suggesting that some of the violence in these ghettos, it is indeed designed this way. Studies have shown this, that when you put certain programs into place, giving these minors something again to look forward to, the violence decreases. She just alluded to this. And when you do not, the violence then increases. So the violence can decrease rather quickly if the government wanted it to.
Doc, but that sounds a lot like word salad to me.
I am a board-certified emergency physician and dean of the Yale School of Public Health. I've spent nearly 20 years working as an emergency physician in a top-tier trauma center. Here in the U.S., treating firearm injuries is a routine part of emergency medicine. During our training, we learn how to identify who must go right to an operating room, how to crack the chest of someone who's bleeding out, and how to notify family members of a death. While in training, though, we rarely, if ever, learn to ask what could be done to prevent a gunshot wound in the first place. That changed for me about 15 years ago, after I cared for a young man, the son of a first responder, who had shot himself with his parents' firearm. He was the first patient I'd cared for who had intentionally shot himself. I couldn't save him, but he changed my perspective on gun violence. First, his death drove me to learn more about firearm suicide, to realize that in the emergency department, we rarely saw suicide attempts from a gun, not because they were rare, but because they were so often fatal. Second, his death led me to question why we didn't think about gunshot wounds the same way we think about drunk driving or heart disease, as something we can and should prevent. Most disturbingly, I noticed the difference in how my colleagues responded to this suicide compared to the everyday toll of community gun violence. Since that case, I have treated people for every type of firearm injury, from domestic violence to victims of drive-bys. I've saved some lives, but not all, and have informed countless families of the loss of their loved ones. And it is because I have had a front row seat to our nation's growing firearm injury epidemic that I have worked to define and implement a public health approach to this crisis. To clarify, this is how a public health approach works. First, we gather data on the problem. How common is it and who is affected? Second, we define risk and protective factors. What increases or decreases the chance of someone being hurt or dying? Third, we figure out programs that work to change those patterns, to avert injury, hospitalization, or death. And finally, we scale what works. America's total number of gun deaths is the highest on record, and our rate nears its peak. Firearm deaths have surpassed breast cancer deaths in America. Firearms are now the leading cause of death for American children age 1 through 19. Although mass shootings get the most media attention, 2/3 of firearm deaths are preventable suicides, averaged over the last decade, like that young man I cared for 15 years ago. I have story after story of public health collaborations between gun owners and non-gun owners, hospital workers and community violence interrupters, faith leaders and survivors. We have shown we can reduce the risk of a shooting long before someone picks up a gun with intent to harm. Through your bipartisan commitment to this public health approach, our country can reduce firearm injury and death for all.
Let me ask you this. In September of this
Dang, so firearm deaths are the number one cause of deaths in the country for children ages 1 through 19 years old. Wow. The number one cause of death. But as she just alluded to, studies have shown that gun deaths and gun violence can be reduced. It can be reduced when you introduce certain programs into the communities and help guide these adolescents. This is her argument. Kennedy here, of course, doesn't want to hear it. He just wants to believe that these individuals are innately bad, prone to violence, and it's embedded in them, and essentially there's no hope for them. There is nothing that anyone can do. they're just prone to violence. Just a bunch of criminal thugs that are prone to violence. This coming from an American citizen, an old, crusty American citizen who believes in guns, does not want to rid himself or the country of guns, and someone who has a history, as does his ancestors, of committing atrocious gun violence. Talking about someone with guns. You sick individual. All y'all sick.
This year, our New Mexico governor issued a public health emergency order, and she suspended the right to bear arms in Albuquerque and the surrounding county. Do you support that?
I do not. What I do support is the work that New Mexico has done
Do you
with.
support that?
No.
You don't? Okay. Let's see. During his first 2 years as the DA in Philadelphia, District Attorney Krasner lost or dropped 47% of all the illegal firearms cases in the city. Do you agree with that?
I'm not a lawyer. I'm a physician and a public health professional. I can say that New Mexico has done amazing work in trying to address the suicide and partner violence.
I'm asking about Philadelphia.
I don't have an
The DA
opinion.
dropped 47% of all the illegal firearms cases. Did he do the right thing there?
I don't have an opinion. However, I will say that just as with fentanyl, the spread of illicit
I'm
substances.
sorry to cut you off, but I'm
That's
running
okay.
out of time.
Understood.
The LA District Attorney, George Gascon, said that he would not prosecute any sentencing enhancements for guns or gang-related activity. Do you think he did the right thing?
Again, I am neither a lawyer nor a prosecutor.
You don't have an opinion on that?
I honestly don't know enough about it to have an opinion.
You don't think gangs should be prosecuted for having illegal guns?
I'm neither a lawyer nor a prosecutor, and that's not my area of research.
But yet you want to take guns away.
I've never said that I want to take guns
from
away.
law-abiding citizens.
I think that you are saying something that I've not said in my written or oral testimony, sir.
Okay. You equated gun deaths.
Yes, no, she's never said that. And he's going, he sounds like Charlie Kirk. He's talking about the gang violence, the gang deaths, the DAs who, mitigated the sentences of individual gang members who may have been caught with weapons and all of this. The DA there in Philadelphia and George Gascon of California, who only thing he said was that he didn't want to give out these enhancements anymore. They're giving you a 20-year enhancement for being in the gang, a 20-year enhancement for having a gun, along with whatever the charge was. But just for having a weapon, they're giving you all these enhancements. It was racial. He understood that. Everyone knows that. So he said, I'm not going to do that anymore. Clearly, he has a problem with this. But he doesn't have a problem with Donald Trump not going to prison for his crimes. He's a convicted felon and is in the Epstein files and has committed murders, allegedly. This is all in the files. Has committed the most heinous crimes in the history of the world. And he doesn't want Donald Trump in prison. He's worried about the gang members in LA and them not getting a 100-year sentence anymore for some trivial crime. This is what he's upset about. But he's not upset about the history of this country and the gun violence that it exacted against an entire race of people, killing millions of them. He doesn't care about that. He only cares about the young thugs that are in the catacombs and grottos of America trying to survive. Because, again, studies show that when you help them survive, when you put programs into the community that foster positive growth, then the gun violence decreases. But he doesn't want to hear that, and he doesn't want to help to implement these programs because he wants to continue with this right-wing, white supremacist talking point.
to heart disease in your opening statement.
Yes, sir.
Which is a greater public health problem? Gun deaths or heart disease?
So heart disease does kill more folks across the United States, largely in the
That's
end of their life.
700,000? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gun deaths about 50,000?
Correct.
Do you support outlawing fried foods?
I'm sorry. How does that relate to?
Because fried foods contribute to heart disease, don't they?
Again, I have not written or said that I
sure-
support.
Look at her back there laughing, smiling at this guy with this asinine analogy. Get out of here, man. These people make me freaking sick.
You're a
outlawing.
physician, right?
I am. Have I said that I support outlawing anything in my testimony today?
Okay.
No,
Let me ask one more question. I'm sorry, I cannot see that far, Doctor, on the very
of course
end.
you can.
Cozy Gay, thank you.
Yes, sir. You said, I wrote it down. You said that no one should be judged by the worst thing they have done in their lives.
Correct.
If one of these young doctors sitting behind you, God forbid, walks out on the streets of Washington, D.C., and is raped or sodomized, you don't think the rapist should be judged?
I don't think it should.
Understand what you're listening to. These people are sick. Why didn't he say, if one of these doctors or whatever sitting behind you walked out and got beat up, got robbed, got mugged, got killed? Why do you have to go to what he went to? Raped and sodomy. Why is that on his mind? Probably in the Epstein files too. Because these people are sick. This is what is on his mind. This is what he probably believes should happen to these women. They're all guilty. They're all complicit, culpable individuals. They all have blood on their hands as it relates to the Epstein abuse. All of these right-wing MAGA maggots, they're all sick. First thing he goes to, God forbid, they walk out and get raped. Damn, great. What about somebody snatching their purse or something? That don't even enter his thought process. Nope.
Should be terminal. It shouldn't be for the rest of their lives.
You think we should forgive them and not give them any punishment?
I believe in
You think
forgiveness.
nobody's responsible?
Did you get any punishment for slavery? Have you not been forgiven? Have you paid some hefty price or any price at all? No, you benefited, continue to benefit. People, why you bring up slavery? 400 years ago. Well, it's not 400 years ago. The country continues to profit from it. It hasn't given up a dime of its benefits, the benefits that slavery rendered for them. These individuals were forgiven for their gruesome, heinous, diabolical, dastardly, human flesh-mongering crimes. I haven't forgiven them, but most black people have. Not surprisingly. But he doesn't believe that. I know it always goes somewhere else with me, huh? Oh, well. He doesn't believe that a criminal who's committed a horrible crime should be forgiven. This is the arrogance of these people. You were forgiven for your crimes. Oh, he didn't commit the crime. He wasn't here doing slavery. Well, the father of your crimes. If we believe that certain acts are hereditary, then you have the same genes that was passed down. And again, you benefit from that horrific act that was slavery. You benefit from that today. You benefit from racism today, which is why you continue to be racist, as you just exhibited here in this back and forth. sounding like Charlie Kirk only asking about the ghettos, catacombs, and grottos of America and the gun violence as it relates to these places. Never once mentioning the crimes and violence that is committed by right-wing extremists, right-wing racists, the individuals who invaded the Capitol with weapons, the individuals who invaded Michigan with weapons, the Capitol there in Michigan with weapons. You never speak about this, the individual who took out Charlie Kirk's neck. You never talk about them running around with weapons, just like Charlie Kirk never talked about them. You always want to talk about the individuals who need help and their shortcomings. Sick.
For their actions?
I believe in responsibility. I believe in forgiveness.
Thank you, Mr. Wow.
Wow. He says, wow, he can't believe it. He can't believe that someone would believe in forgiveness because he would never forgive. He would never forgive if you did anything, did anything to him, to his family. He would not forgive you. He would want you to have a death penalty. As Charlie Kirk said, he doesn't believe in sympathy. He's one of them. He's one of them. He has the same talking points, the same rhetoric as Charlie Kirk, running around talking about what's going on in the ghettos as it relates to gang violence. Never once stopping to think about your own people and their gang violence and racial violence and how it terrorizes the country. They've been designated as the most terroristic group in the country. The FBI said that the greatest threat to the country are right-wing white supremacist groups. That they are the biggest threat to the country. But all you want to talk about is gang violence. What's happening in Philadelphia, Chicago, and what Gascon has done in California. No. Talk about what's going on with these mass shootings at these schools. When you want to reference violence and gun violence, reference that, not the ghetto. We don't want to hear it. Stay safe and stay free, people.